Hello, good evening indeed, and many thanks for joining us here at Rwanda Television News. We hope you had yourselves a very productive week. Now, top of our edition tonight, these are our headlines. On Wednesday evening, President Paul Kagame attended a dinner hosted by U.S. President Joseph Biden and First Lady Jill Biden for the 2022 U.S.-Africa Summit taking place in that country. The East African Legislative Assembly, EALA, has passed a bill on the establishment of the East African Financial Services Commission as an institution of the community. Glad to have your company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali. My name is Martina Abera, and I'm going to be with you tonight. As we begin this edition of the news, let us inform you that on Wednesday evening, President Paul Kagame attended a dinner hosted by U.S. President Joseph Biden and First Lady Jill Biden for the 2022 U.S.-Africa Summit taking place in that country. This is the second such a summit to be held, the first having taken place in 2014. Now, Africa's dependence on imports accounts for over 70% and are worth around $14 billion annually. Africa imports about 95% of its medicines, and it is in the view of everyone that this level of dependence is dangerous in terms of health security. Now, the African Constituency Bureau is in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, organized on December 14th a panel discussion on the margins of the second conference on public health in Africa, the side event CPHIA, titled, and I quote, Policy Dialogue on Advancing Local Manufacturing for Health Commodities in Africa. So joining us here on RTV News tonight to explore more on this matter is Josephat Kakoma, Executive Director for the African Constituency Bureau for the Global Fund. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Kakoma.
Thank you.
Yes. So as we begin, your organization recently organized a side event on policy dialogue on advancing local manufacturing on health commodities for Africa during Africa CDC's CPH IA conference. What is your organization, if you could tell us about that, and why is this discussion of interest to you and Africa at large?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. The African Constituency Bureau is a continental organization that supports the Africans who represent the continent on the Global Fund Board. Our work basically involves engaging stakeholders, as we're doing today. We also do policy analysis, policy research, and advocacy, and ultimately package all the products of this work into what might look like policy briefs and also talking points for our board members. So basically that's the Bureau. Coming to a second part of the question, this work on local manufacturing is important to the continent. Other people have described it as an area of existential importance. If we do not or are not able to take care of our own health, we will be delegating other continents, other countries to be able to provide our health services, and in particular health products and medicines and so forth and so on. As you may know, there's a conversation around, or as the saying goes, some folks actually say, you cannot deliver health as to whom it may concern. It's something that needs to be embedded within the Africans ourselves should be able to provide health services for the continent.
All right, thank you very much. Now, it is fact that Africa's dependence on imports accounts for over 95% in a market worth around $14 billion annually. So in the end, what does this mean for the continent?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a sad state of affairs. The health of the continent is basically in the hands of individuals that are not on the continent. I'll give you an example. The Global Fund spends close to 2.5 to 3 billion US dollars on health commodities. on Africa, but we do not supply any of that. Our manufacturers constitute about 500 in all across the continent, but only about 1% are pre-qualified by the regulators. Now, that's really concerning, and as a continent, we need to take the health security as something that's really critical. And because of that, there has been interventions at various levels across the continent to redress this. So it's something that's unacceptable, to say the least. Thank you.
Yeah, and like you said, it is very concerning. So in your opinion, do you think Africa in itself is willing to flip the page and change the narrative?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there has been quite a lot of developments across the entire African continent that points to the fact that our leaders are increasingly taking the political will to turn things around. You might note, for instance, that the African Union has formed what is now called the African Manufacturing Agency, which will actually be based here in Rwanda, I suppose in Kigali. That's leadership. And what the continent is basically saying is that they want to take control of production of health commodities in our own hands. There are other things that the continent has been able to do. There's been a development of the pharmaceutical plan for the continent in terms of production of health commodities and medicines. There are resources that are being mobilized to be able to provide funding to set up not just the actual production and manufacturing plants, but the entire value chain, beginning from research and development, IP-related issues, commercialization of innovations, and so forth and so on. So that in itself, with a whole lot of other development across the continent, is a good indication that our leaders are actually taking the bull by the horn, if you can put it like that.
Okay, maybe as we near the end of the interview, could you mention but a few, some of the hindrances that you may think are slowing down Africa from changing that narrative?
Well, I think there are a number of challenges, if I can put it like that. Partly, I think it's issues to do with regulation. Partly, it's issues to do with, substantively, to be honest, it's about inadequate investment in research and development. I'll give you an example. For a product to come to the market, it takes about 12 years of research. And in some instances, you're talking about $100 million to actually get a product to be launched. Now, that's a lot of money. And I think we have individuals who are leading in different research areas. I wouldn't worry so much about that, but it's the resources, particularly around R&D. The manufacturing plants themselves may not be as costly, but it's really around research and development. There are a lot of other challenges, including coordination and also just doing the research that is necessary to ensure that when products come to the market, they're actually acquired. We have instances of certain products coming to the market, for instance, in South Africa. A plant actually is launched, but there's no market for it, and it shuts down in record time. So those are some of the challenges that affect this aspect of the industry we're talking about.
Yeah, hopefully some of those issues can be tackled as soon as possible. Now, last but not least, what would be the cost for Africa to boost local manufacturing capacity in respective African countries? Well,
I won't talk in dollar terms, but Suffice to say that there are things we need to do for ourselves, improve coordination around this conversation. I mean, not every country should be planning to be producing. And here's what I mean by that. We have a market of about 1.3 billion people. It looks big, but it's small. And so if every country is producing, you will end up not actually realizing the economic dividends that are supposed to be realized from that. So that's part of it. But like I said, it's issues around research and development. It's issues around how do we commercialize the innovations that we are producing and bring them to the market, intellectual property related issues. So those are the key costs. Predominantly, it will be about commercializing. It will be about ensuring that when we have these products and ready, we are well coordinated. So the continent needs to put in place infrastructure that will ensure that we properly coordinate, we properly find the resources to put up the plants, but substantively, it will be about investing in R&D.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kakoma, for being with us here and sharing your insights on advancing the local manufacturing for health commodities. Hopefully, so much more can be done to better it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Now, moving on, the plenary session of the Chamber of Deputies on Thursday requested the Prime Minister to solve the issues demonstrated by the Auditor General in the Girinka program. The call was made after the presentation of the assessment report on the Girinka program. Prince Manzi has the report.
The Auditor General Report 2021-2022 on the Girinka program demonstrated that 4,270 cows donated to the Girinka program were sold, 219 were stolen, 11 cows were auctioned, and 641 cows were given to people that were not qualified for the program. The chairperson of the Committee on Land, Agriculture, Livestock and Environment in the Deputy Chamber in the Rwanda Parliament, Alisuwera Kayumba, states that the current issues in the Girinka program are due to the misunderstandings among the institutions established to implement the program.
You heard that some were asking why we do not assign this to the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources. But in the discussions we had with the ministry, they told us that the policies says that these issues are to be solved by implementers. Yet the implementers also say that we have to request to the Ministry of Local Governance, and the ministry also presents challenges. So we concluded that since this issue includes more than one institution, the Prime Minister is the one to coordinate it.
After finding that the advices given to the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources on these issues in different times were not considered lawfully, the plenary session of the Chamber of Deputies made the decision of requesting the Prime Minister to solve these issues and present the report in no more than 4 months. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince Manzi, for that report. Now on to education matters. On Thursday, the Ministry of Education published the examination results for the advanced level of the academic year 2021-2022. For the first time, the Ministry of Education announced a new grading system where all the categories, including general education, TVET, and TTC, will be scored on 60. Olive Nete has more.
The Ministry of Education published results of the advanced level in various categories, which are the general education, technical vocational education and training, and the teaching and training centers. The maximum weighted aggregate achieved by a candidate who has excelled in all subjects is 60, while the minimum weighted aggregate achieved by a successful candidate is 9. In the academic year 2021-2022, the Teaching and Training Center excelled with 99.9%, while TVET is 97.8% and 94.6% in the general education. Among the 47,606 that sat for examinations in the general education category, females were 25,829, which equals to 54.2%, and 50.6% among these passed. Males were 21,550, which equals to 45.3%, where 44% of these passed. Other categories include the TVET with 21,227, 53.6% were male, and 52.6% among them passed, while 45.9% were female, and among them, 45.2% of them passed the examinations. As for the teaching and training centers, students who sat for exams were 2,895. Among them, 1,749 were female, and males were 1,146. Only 3 among them failed. Guizanga Mijen Nesta, one of the best performers in the general education, and Ashime Siomana response in the Tibet, expressed their feelings.
I feel very happy. I thank God, my parents and my daughters, and everyone who helped me to achieve this. The main secret is to study hard and prepare for the exams a bit early to succeed.
What pushed me to choose this subject is because I wanted it. I wanted to learn more about technology, and I feel very happy today. What gave me confidence is that I had the will, and I thought that I will make it. Dr. Bernard Bahati, the Director General of the National Examination and School Inspection Authority, pointed out that this academic year's results were satisfactory.
We are content for the results of the advanced level of this year. As you noticed, every section is above 90%. What remains is to put more efforts in the education system and also reinforce strategies used so that it may keep improving.
The Minister of State in the Ministry of Education in charge of ICT and TVET, Irene Claudette, points out that the Ministry of Education continues to make great efforts to speed up the delivery of grades and shorten the time it takes to announce the results. Some people claim that we take long in delivering results of the national exam, yet it's not done on purpose. We just want to deliver the right results. We would like to assure you that as we continue to develop in technology used in such practices, as we also improve in our education system, as well as the grading system, we will reduce the time used in the marking process, but we just want to let you know that it's not an easy process. The number of schools that participated in the national exam is 772 in the general education, 216 in the TVET, and 16 in the teaching and training center. Among 47,379 in the general education, those with more or equal to principal passes are 87.9%, in 20,591 who passed in the TVET, 97.0% passed with more or equal to 2 principal passes, while in the TTC, 2,895 passed. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive Nete, for that report. Now, moving on, the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA, has passed a bill on the establishment of the East African Financial Services Commission as an institution of the community. The institution will regulate the non-banking financial sectors like insurance, pension, capital markets, microfinance, and money lending. Betty Mutoni has the report.
The East African Legislative Assembly holds its meeting in Arusha, Tanzania, where the East African Financial Services Commission Bill was passed, seeking to establish an institution that will regulate the non-banking finance sectors like insurance, pension, capital markets, microfinance, and money lending.
Banking, capital and money markets, insurance, retirement benefits, microfinance, and any other financial services. In the case of the banking sector, the community agreed to establish the East African Central Bank to perform the functions of a central bank, including prudential supervision of the banking sector. The EAC Financial Services Commission Bill therefore establishes a commission to promote the integration of the financial system by promoting the harmonization or supervisory and the regulatory practices.
The committee observed that in accordance with the roadmap annexed to the protocol on monetary union, the East African Financial Services Commission was expected to be established by 2018. The committee noted that it has been 4 years down the road, and the bill was introduced on 1st March 2022, despite the importance of the commission. 2, Whereas the committee commends the summit and the Council of Ministers for introducing the bill to establish the East African Community Financial Services Commission as one of the institutions of the community to support the East African Community Monetary Union, the mandate of the Commission, like the mandates of other organs and institutions of the ESC, may not be effectively executed in the absence of an alternative sustainable funding mechanism.
The Speaker of the Regional Assembly, Honorable Martin Ngoga, said that passing this law is a milestone to the Fourth Assembly that will be ending its duty on Thursday, 15th December 2022.
This is one of the legacy bills that this House has passed. It's a bill that touches directly on a pillar of our integration. Therefore, we hope that the remaining step, and that is the assent by heads of state, will not be delayed. What we need to do will be done without undue delay so that we can take forward the purpose for which we needed this law.
The East African Community Partner States, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, South Sudan, and the new member, DRC Congo, agreed to have a single currency by 2024. Although early this month, the Secretary General of East African Community, Dr. Peter Makuti, said that attaining a single currency may not be attained as planned by 2024 till 2031.
Of 2031, I'm not very sure whether you'll be that patient yourself to wait until 2031 to get a currency. We are actually looking at having that currency sooner than even that particular time. And that's why we still feel, even if there's a deviation from the earlier set date of 2024, it can't be more than a year or two from the time it was set. There's a lot of push from the citizens of East Africa, from the business community, that they need a common currency.
The East African Financial Service Commission Bill 2022 was passed in Arusha with the objective of providing the establishment of East African Financial Services Commission as an institution of the community pursuant to Article 12A of the Protocol on the Establishment of East African Monetary Union to provide for the functions, governance, funding, and headquarters of the mission. Betty Mutoni, in Arusha, Tanzania.
Thank you very much, Betty Mutoni, for that report. On Thursday, the 4th East African Legislative Assembly ended its duty after 5 years in service. The 54-member team of legislators, 9 representing each partner state, bid farewell to the Arusha-based parliament as only 22 of them were re-elected to the 5th Assembly. Betty Mutoni continues.
In December 2017, lawmakers of 4th African Legislative Assembly elected Rwandan's representative, Honorable Martin Ngoga, to position of East African Legislative Assembly Speaker. Regional legislators praised Honorable Martin Ngoga for his skill in uniting the Assembly despite the chairing the 5 years in the office.
In leading this Assembly. Right Honorable Speaker, it has not been easy for you, for those who were around you. We saw it and we learned a lot. I don't want to talk much about this because we all know, but I want to thank the 4th Assembly for supporting our Speaker. Because even if he has all those skills and character and all those things we mentioned and others mentioned, without the support of the members who he leads, it would be very difficult.
Honorable Speaker, me and you did not start well. As you know, I was sitting when Amara is sitting right now, and I was the one who was saying, no, we must elect someone else. But once elected, Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank you, and I would like to, in Swahili we say kukusifu, to praise you for your professionalism.
We have been able to pass laws. We conducted oversight activities. We have done also sensitizations in different forms, in different ways in all partner states. We have achieved a lot thanks to the contribution of each and every one of us.
The Speaker of East African Legislative Assembly, Martin Ngoga, noted that it has been a great experience the past 5 years and thanked the cooperation and gratitude to the East African Legislative Assembly members for the commitment and teamwork.
And it is my singular pleasure and honor to address you as we mark the end of our tour of duty as members of the Fourth Assembly. This is actually my last address to you in my capacity as the Speaker. You have had enough time to listen to me for the last 5 years. Honorable members, as an Assembly, we have recorded great achievements which continue to make a lasting impact on the EIC integration agenda. At the same time, we encountered a number of challenges in discharging our legislative, oversight, and representation functions. We devised mechanisms to overcome these challenges, and in the process, we have learned many lessons which will be useful to our successors. All these achievements, challenges, and perspectives are recorded in our handover report. I wish to register my profound gratitude to the entire membership of the Fourth Assembly for trusting me with the responsibility of being the Speaker. You have also provided me unwavering support. Together, we built and consolidated consensus around critical issues, and we supported each other during critical moments. It has been truly a team effort.
The Fourth Assembly that ended its term on Thursday was comprised of 54 members, 9 from each partner state. And the Fifth Assembly is expected to start on Tuesday next week, and it will be comprised of 63 members, with the addition of new lawmaker representative, the DRC Congo. On Tuesday next week, election will be conducted to choose the next Speaker of East African Legislative Assembly, the ball being between Burundi and South Sudan. Betty Mutoni, in Arusha, Tanzania.
Thank you, Betty, for that report. Now, the International Conference on Public Health in Africa participants point out that African countries should work together and share information on the prevention of non-communicable diseases, including hypertension, which are the cause of death to many on the continent. Prince Manzi has the report.
Each one of us here is impacted.
Dr. Mary Nyamongo from Kenya states that most of her relatives had non-communicable diseases. Her brother recently died due to a head tumor, while her mother has hypertension.
We need to take this at a personal level. When you look at it as something that is affecting people out there, then our approach will be impersonal. So as we go back to our countries, let's read about it. Our colleague from collaboration and commitment to making a difference.
This issue is common in Africa, whereas in Rwanda, 44% of the deaths result from these diseases. To continue the prevention of these diseases, Rwanda shared to other countries a public sport event done twice a month as one of the strong measurements. Dr. Janet Chondo is an health expert.
It is one of the strategy, prevention, that the leadership, the top leadership, has used to bring everyone together, not only to socialize, but also during the car-free day, what happened? We have our leaders pulling all of us, hey guys, come do some exercise so that we can reduce those burden, because we want to focus on prevention, which is free, which is available. We just need a little bit of support, coordinated efforts.
Dr. Ahmed Ogwel Uma, the acting director of Africa CDC, states that the challenge to sustainable measurements in the prevention of non-communicable diseases remains the wrong mentality, and iterates that African countries have to share information on the steps towards the prevention of these diseases.
So those success stories, those successful interventions, particularly the ones that are low cost and relevant to our context in Africa, let's publish them, let's talk about them, let's adapt them and ensure that they are spread throughout the continent. As Africa CDC, we are committing to two things. One is we will work with each and every partner who is willing to provide support to our member states here. As Africa CDC, we are committing to two things. One is we will work with each and every partner who is willing to provide support to our member states here on the continent. And second, we are going to put our resources as well in making sure that these innovative ideas are not only being implemented, but they are also being shared across the continent as something that is ours, something that actually works.
The World Health Organization demonstrates that in the last 30 years, numbers of hypertension patients globally increased from 650 million to 1,028 million. Most of these patients are from developing and poor nations, especially African countries. Another major issue is that half of diabetes patients are not aware of it, plus different types of cancer and accidents that take lives of many. It was demonstrated that 44% of accidents victims in Africa are pedestrians. Apart from death, disabilities are also a result of non-communicable diseases, and this hinders the development of families. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince Mazi, for that report. Now, more than 600 youth from all over Africa are gathered in Arusha, Tanzania, for the You Lead Summit Africa, where they are discussing various topics, including business, trade and enterprise, climate change, gender equality, taking up leadership involvement in the decision-making bodies and policy-making positions, and more. Also, young people who are engaged in different business projects have been given startup capital to help them start their projects. This conference was launched in 2017 EAC, known as the EAC Youth Summit, with 200 youth, and in 2020 it expanded to reach the whole of Africa. Now, on behalf of the production and team, we thank you very much for sticking with us on RTV News. May you have a safe night and a good night.